everybody. Those also digitally with us, and thank you very much for the interpreters. And we also will have a DJ helping me, Ubongi. So we will be hopefully doing something rather interactive. Now, you might all be rather disappointed seeing me the way I am. My picture showed a very promising, beautiful gray wig. It is the gray wig of, let's say, white man guilt, and maybe old white man guilt. Now, I forgot it, as I do. I just also lost my telephone. And the wig is not with me. And so I thought, this is a great hotel. They might also provide one. And, here at the Holiday Inn, where I am, this is just a little bit of publicity. They tell me, don't panic. We've got this. And they have a comb, nail file, face cloth, sewing kit, toothpaste, toothbrush, body lotion, conditioner, cotton wool, shaving cream, disposable razor, cotton, cosmetic pads, and female sanitary items, yet no wig. So with this, let us start. And in fact, as Melissa so kindly introduced me, I shall speak in us terms for today. So you can address me in the following ways, as we, us, and ourselves. And the us comes to you as digitally enhanced. And I will now ask to sort of dim down the light, because the co-agents are going to be here with me. And I would just invite you to start now the film, as they have been in conversations with me preparing this intervention. And instead of me speaking much about those three beautiful beings, that is Donna Kukama, Yohann de Saint-Pern, and Thandile Mbatsha, they will introduce themselves as soon as our DJ is ready, which still might take a little while. So meanwhile, and until that is the case, I will just sort of keep on talking to you. And we have a hope. We have a hope that there will be a film. And maybe I will, just as this film might come on, also bring you a little spoiler about the lightness of laughter. I do not think in times as we are, in times where wars are around us, where very big friends of ours are also directly affected by a very unjust and very difficult world, I would say, like with Bertolt Brecht, who had been writing a beautiful poem for those who are coming after us, and he had, it will come, you will see. He had said that in the beginning of the poem, he said, the innocent world is silly and void. A smooth forehead points to lack of empathy. The one who is laughing just has not received the terrible news. But then at the end, promising, he sort of says, you who will be ready to act as humans, helping humans, think of us with indulgence. And I think now you just let it go. Put it on. It will do something. Right. And with another 5 seconds to go, we start now.
Okay, so I am Donna Kukama. I'm a visual artist working predominantly in performance art. And well, I've been for a while looking at ways in which performance can be a form of writing, writing in time, writing histories, and this as a way to kind of provoke or question ideas of knowledge production from a Western point of view. where history is sort of linear and written and fixed. And from a very specific perspective, with performance, it kind of allows for things to change along the way, or things to take different directions, and for multiple stories to be told, and for multiple perspectives to also be represented.
Bonjour, moi c'est Yohann Queland Saint-Pern. I'm a visual artist and I live in Green Island, and we also build artist on space with other artists here to engage some other way of how we work art in this country and for this region in general.
So I'm Thandile Mbatsha. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. I'm a performance artist. I'm an educator. I'm a producer, cultural producer, facilitator, and just a maker of art, basically, that really focuses on the socio political and socioeconomic, subjectivities of the LGBTQIA plus community. That's mainly my working space. My work is continuously trying to insert myself within my geographical location, not even insert, but assert rather. Assert myself as African, as Black, as queer, as Xhosa, as a man, as a woman, as a person. I'm currently very enamored with the pre-colonial Black person that existed before I did, right?
Of few myths, can we so confidently assert that they belong to the oldest forms of expression of mankind? And few other myths have preserved their original content so unchanged and so widely distributed across all cultures as the figure of the trickster. Many of the mischievous traits of the trickster figure we know from, is it? Okay. All right, now you see me. Many of the mischievous traits of the trickster figure we know from ancient stories live on to the day in various forms of clowns, pranksters, and artists. Although repeatedly combined with other myths and other drastically reconstructed and represented new elements, the plot of subversion and the invitation to laughter always seems to have prevailed. That is coming from Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, a psychiatrist who wrote this in the 1954. And on we go.
A re simoleng ka tlhaloso e bulegileng ka gore selo se se re se bitsang Trickster kgotsa ene motshameki kgotsa ene moraloki or mogotshoganyetsi gore o ipontsha jang, re mo bona jang ga a tlhagelela. Jaanong re ka simolola ka buka ke buka ya gare Louis Hyde. Ene o tlhalosa a re motho yo ke motsenagare, o tsena mo thoko ga lefatshe la ba ba suleng le la ba ba phelang. Jaanong jaaka a le mo gare ga mafatshe a, ke gore ke motho o kgonang go tsamaela magodimong le lefatshe, o ya magodimo, o ya mafatshe, o ya magodimo mafatsheng. Jaanong motsamaisi o wa dikgang o kgona go bua le badimo, o kgona go bua le re ka e bitsang mewa ya badimo le mewa ya ba ba ka kwano ba ba nang le rona. Jaanong Louis Hyde ha bua ka Sekgowa a re, when the roads between heaven and earth are closed, the trickster will travel not as a messenger, but as a thief, the one who steals from the gods the good things the humans need if they are to survive in the world.
Limiting our gaze to the environment of the human, we can, through the lens of the storyteller, understand how the seemingly devious role of the trickster is an ultimately helpful one. Acting as a confusing mirror of ill intentions, the trickster figure provokes situations in which the deceptive nature or the deceptive person sees himself or herself deceived in the end. The English cultural theorist and art critic Jean Fisher describes in her essay Toward a Metaphysics of Shit the trickster as a figure of disorder who navigates the cracks in the system of power and knowledge. She states, the trickster unsettles and troubles boundaries between order and chaos, civilization and barbarism, the sacred and the profane, destabilizing the very foundations of social order. The trickster's humor disrupts the seriousness of these systems, revealing their absurdity and fragility. We can thus read the trickster as a crosser of multiple boundaries. They cross boundaries of our societal norms and question the parameters of belonging and the limitations groups are creating to keep to themselves. As we constantly distinguish right and wrong, sacred and profane, clear and dirty, male and female, young and old, living and dead, the trickster will cross these lines, question binaries and confuse distinctions. In short, trickster is the mythic embodiment of ambiguity, of ambivalence, doubleness, and duplicity, contradiction and paradox. Okay, so
I've been enamored with the Xhosa proverb that goes as follows: in intyatyambo iyaphuma engqondorheni. Intyatyambo ke is a flower, ingqondorha is a dumpster, or rather a place, an arid piece of where nothing is supposed to grow. I've always been very, very excited by the thought of existing in a space that is not for you, kind of way, you know, in a space that you're not supposed to exist, like to grow, to flourish. So then I'm always super, super excited by the idea of existing in spaces that I shouldn't be in, so to speak, or were not meant for me. I'm always inserting myself, even in the performance space, in a situation where my physical body is not supposed to thrive in. So I'll put myself under rocks and big boulders. I'm always trying to make sense of how am I still alive as a Black queer body, transgender diverse body? How am I still alive in a space that is constantly pushing me down, in a space that is constantly does not want me to exist, in fact? So I'm always interested in the process of how I'm here today and talking to you, Georges and Yohann.
Il y a des choses qui m'ont fait penser au tiers paysage qu'aborde par exemple Gilles Clément, dont le symbole de cette plante qui pousse à travers le bitume et qu'on appelle mauvaise herbe, mais qui n'a de nom de mauvaise herbe que par destination de celui qui a envie d'avoir pas de fissures, ou qui a envie d'avoir un beau jardin, ou qui a envie d'avoir que des plantes cultivées, cultivables pour des besoins bien précis. Et cette plante qui pousse, qu'on appelle mauvaise herbe, en créole ou à La Réunion, ou dans beaucoup de nos régions océan Indien, elles étaient mangées et elles étaient aussi force de tisane et de médecine locale. Et c'est vrai que le mal, en fait, qui a été fait, ou en tout cas la mauvaise, le fait de nommer quelque chose autrement et changer ses destinations ou vouloir l'éradiquer, euh, ça joue beaucoup, ça crée une mémoire des corps.
Language is one of the playgrounds of the trickster. By inhabiting language, the trickster opens the potential of traps. The medieval trickster figure, Till Eulenspiegel, that's in the German context, taking the words at their most basic meaning, would clean out the house of his employer when called to clean out or get away. But it is also at the very edge where language fails us that the trickster works. The Cherokee Nation artist Jimmy Durham says the following: "It is necessary that with great urgency we all speak well and listen well. We, you and I, must remember everything. We must especially remember those things we never knew." The paradoxical and puzzling nature of language as a matter can thus perform a kind of pause in that which we consider given. Meaning making is deferred to us, the readers. We thus engage in an act of interpretation that is itself a part of a creative process. Following the trickster is a route full of uncertainties, which we can only engage in as an act of will. Language thus becomes a matter to be crossed and twisted. The trickster's appearances as a messenger, mediator, also happens through matter, in the form of human or non-human nature. The trickster thus is activated through and activates matter to test it in its potential of performativity. That is, in its possibilities to be affected and to be crossed by the energies of other matters. Oops.
So the butter, I mean, I stay a little bit in the butter because of the margarine. I use it in my performance, but also it sits very deeply in my fabric of being a Xhosa raised boy who went through male circumcision on the mountain and all. So there's a film called Irreverence, if you haven't seen it. It's everywhere. But something happens, something is done on the last day before the boy departs mountain, where the men come, because I don't know if you've said, there's a white clay-ish kind of substance that you always are putting on your body while you are on the mountain for that month or 2 or 3 months. It varies per cultural group or tribe group, whatever. But that white clay dries your body up because of putting it on every day. So yeah, I'll get to this a little bit later about the science behind all these things. So then at the end of the day, at the end of that month, the last day, the men come in the morning and then they put butter on your body as a way to replenish your natural body oils. But also what they're doing, like, you know, in education, we have the curriculum and we have the unofficial curriculum that always, like the unspoken curriculum, or like that unofficial. So they put the butter on your body, but then while they're putting that butter on your body, they're telling you how to be a man. This is how you must be. These are touching your body. They're putting this butter on your body. And they're also telling you how you must be for the rest of your life. This is how a man must be. This is how So for me, getting on stage and deliberately asking women, trans people, and gender diverse people, and of course, everyone from the LGBTQIA plus community to come and put that butter on me on stage is an undoing of what was done to me in 2011 by those men that put that butter on my body, telling me how to be a person, how to not a person, but how to be a man specifically. So I do this thing of undoing things because the body remembers, right? I think 10 years later, I'm sitting and I want to undo everything that was done to me in 2011 by those men on that mountain, putting that butter on me.
Et ce que j'aimais bien dans ce que Thandile proposait comme invitation à venir changer la mémoire du corps, et ben, il permet un geste, une transmission d'un geste à plusieurs autres personnes. Et l'idée derrière ça, c'est si je vous convoque pour prendre soin du mien, vous pouvez aussi prendre soin du vôtre. Et ce geste, on l'aura en partage. Et c'est tout ce mouvement-là, cette remise en mouvement-là, qui pour moi est le centre c'est les enjeux, très clairement. Dans toute performance, il y a une invitation à si lui peut le faire, que peut un corps. Si lui peut le faire, je peux le faire.
We see the trickster's performing environment as one which is crossed by injustices. The tricksters are intuitively aware of what Frantz Fanon called the dynamics of repression and of the social narratives which stabilize this condition. Through the trickster's interventions, there is an invitation to take agency, to reclaim a space of dwelling in and against dominant language, and to turn a skeptical eye upon the truth claims of policing regimes. Tricksters travel a number of roads and invent a number of ways to destabilize what seems given.
And re ka nna ra bua le gore gantsi thata mekgwa ya tse di sa pheleng tse re di bitsang re re trickster kgotsa ona moraloki kgotsa motshoganyedi ga gona lefoko la Setswana le le ka tlhalosang selo se mme ka mokgwa ba tlhalosang ka teng ke gore go aragantse mo go tsotlhe tse re di itseng mo lefatsheng so ha o sheba sentle ditori tsa rona tse re golang ka tsone go na le bophokojwe go na le tsotlhe tse tlabeng le gore ba botlhale thata ebile ba gaisa ba tlabeng ba lwana le bone mo dinaaneng tseo so Trickster le mo dinaaneng e na le go tlhagelela mme re rata jalo go na le tse e leng gore ga di tswe mo fela lefatsheng la rona la batho go na le lefatshe lena la diphologolo.
À un moment, avec une phrase, sans doute ceci n'est pas réel, j'ai commencé vraiment à partir de sans doute ceci n'est pas réel à décortiquer un peu des notions du doute et du réel et de la négative et essayer à partir de quelque chose qui était une phrase assez simple de construire par-dessus de manière empirique une théorisation de ce qu'on nous propose comme étant un continuum naturel de vie et qu'est-ce qui se trouve derrière et à la fois aussi une expansion. C'est-à-dire que le doute devenait un outil à augmenter un territoire connu en faisant quelque chose d'assez simple, c'est il y a quelque chose qui se trouve de l'autre côté que je ne vois pas, dont je ne sais rien, mais je pressens qu'il existe. Mais je ne sais pas quoi. Et en fait, ce n'est pas parce qu'il y a toutes ces inconnus-là qui sont réunis que je ne peux pas me permettre de lancer cette ligne comme comme un pêcheur lance sa ligne avec son hameçon. Et donc cette ligne-là, on l'utilise tout le temps et elle était devenue, ou elle est devenue, une grande réflexion un peu abstraite sur des choses très, très, très concrètes que moi je faisais. Je développe des actions assez simples. Je m'intéresse au seuil. Parce que je débarque à Rouen et dans la ville, dans une grande ville, et c'est la première fois que j'habite dans une ville, puisque je viens de La Réunion. Et dans cette ville-là, on quitte des sols de manière très rapide. Toutes les constructions, tous les sols dans une grande ville, où les hauteurs de plafond sont très courtes. C'est-à-dire que en 900 mètres, je peux changer de 20 fois, 30 fois, 40 fois de sol. Et donc, je me suis dit, tiens, c'est fou, les seuils sont très courts. Et on est hyper sollicité. Et je me suis dit, tiens, je pense si on grandit dans ce type d'environnement-là, on ne peut pas développer le même imaginaire. Et comment est-ce que je vais rendre ça en vue, en sensation? Et comment je peux témoigner de ça? Ça peut être de la vidéo, ça peut être des performances où je fais une promenade, où je marche, où j'enregistre. Et c'était d'abord et avant tout de la vidéo. Mais en revenant quand même sur ces vidéos-là, c'est des espaces sonores. Est-ce que quand je fabrique une œuvre, par exemple, elle doit, si je dis que je fabrique une œuvre, bien sûr, est-ce qu'elle doit ressembler à une œuvre ou est-ce qu'elle ne doit pas ressembler à une œuvre? Et tout l'enjeu, c'était d'augmenter l'acceptation de ce que peut être une œuvre en déjouant tout ce qu'une norme pouvait dire comme acceptable, reconnaissable de telle ou telle forme. Donc en fait, on joue avec les formes, on déplace les normes, on les remet en question et on essaie d'augmenter ces territoires-là en détricotant et en réévaluant en fait le réel.
So, what about humor? Following Johann's suggestion that one of the trickster's tactics and strategies might be the method of doubt to be inserted into the system, we can consider humor as an activator the trickster uses to allow us to visit doubt. And humor as a means to shift. Through an act of humor, we experience a cognitive shift, a change in our perception and thought. We are in a play mode rather than a serious mode, engaged from conceptual and practical concerns. Instead of responding to the cognitive shift with shock, confusion, puzzlement, or other negative emotions, we enjoy it, or mostly. Our pleasure at the cognitive shift is expressed in laughter, which is often very infectious.
La réévaluation du réel passe par le rire à un moment donné. On parlait de l'humour. C'est typiquement un outil qui est là pour réévaluer. C'est même pas d'évaluer ou changer ou être gêné ou se désengager. C'est une réévaluation qui s'opère. Donc c'est vraiment une échelle de valeur en fait. Le rire et l'humour quelque part.
Ke motho yo re mmitsang Trickster kgotsa motshoganyedi kgotsa motshameki yaka motho o tshegisang ka gore setshego se botlhokwa. So go botlhokwa gore go tshegiwe e seng ka gore o batla fela go tshegisa go tshegiwe ke go tshegisa go leng gore go go bontsha mathata a leng teng mo lefatsheng ka mokgwa o lefatshe le le tshegisang ka teng ke gore ha Trickster e tla e tlisa ditshego e re bontsha le fela gore man dilo ha di tsamaye sentle so jaaka mo botlaking re ka nna re a tshega gore dilo ha di tsamaisane sentle re tshega go tlhalosa dilo tse di sa berekeng mme ka nako eo ra tsikinya go a tsikinyega mo lefatsheng ga se gore fela go tshegiwa hela ke gore o tshegisa gore go tsikinyege ga ke itse go lona le tsayang kgang e.
Le rire, c'est un tremblement, c'est très particulier. Et c'est aussi particulier que la musique dont parlait Thandile, c'est-à-dire que quand on fait vibrer par humour quelqu'un, et c'est un son, c'est vraiment faire sortir, c'est une autre forme de provocation. Provocaer dans le sens faire sortir la voix, faire sortir le rire, déjà c'est très, très difficile, c'est très fort. Et je l'aime autant que ces musiques un peu répétitives qui seraient de l'ordre du sacré et qui viendraient ou qui seraient convoquées pour changer la nature, pour protéger quelqu'un ou changer la nature de la personne ou pas tant la nature interne. Mais en tout cas, l'humour, pour moi, il se situe sur les tremblements. Il se situe sur les tremblements et le fait de réunir ensemble, de pouvoir passer un rire à un groupe. Et donc, ça soude un groupe. Le tremblement des personnes soude un groupe. Et je crois que plus on rigole et plus même on se soude. Ça peut être à la fois contre un système, mais pour les corps, pour réunir un ensemble de corps qui sont sous un système légaliste. Donc ça peut avoir deux fonctions, à la fois invalider complètement et libérer en fait les corps qui sont sous pression d'une loi ou de systèmes légaux. Et c'est cette libération-là qui peut faire, à mon avis, faire trembler en fait les corps et provoquer le rire.
And then humor also, I dotted down humor as mediator. Because it's like a common ground. Everybody laughs, you know. It's like it's a way to meet, and George mentioned earlier as a bringing in. This thing of humor, using it as a way to mediate, to bring in, to open the space up for others, also for all of us to be kind of on the same space.
Through various tales, we now come to the conclusions, which you might then also see some stuff. Through various tales and intentions and interventions, we tried now to show together some glimpses into possibilities of the Trickster's ways and contexts in which they can act. You might have detected several elements pointing to the post-human and decolonial discourses, which I want to contour in this very brief way in the conclusion. So it is to unconclude the conclusion, and that is based on the US scholar and history of consciousness and cultural theorist Hannah Haraway's speaking, whose work dislocates the centrality of the human in favor of non-post-human and of biocentered egalitarian stresses. She shows us that the refusal to fail, her refusal to fall into the pitfalls of the classical nature-culture divide, she considers it harmful to ways of thinking a world. She believes we should rather focus on healing and through this act, restructure our collective relationship to the new nature-culture compound linked to contemporary technosciences. Haraway calls for a renewed kinship system performed through affectionate ties with the non-human others. To do so, She invites us to seriously reconsider, disrupt, shift, and expand the realms of reality the Western world has built to keep it stable and manageable. So doubt comes in again. In this context and environment, the tricksters could become figures who, through their agency, realize the possibilities of expression and expansions of horizons through an embodiment, and make through these bodies connections to possible realities yet to be discovered and understood. The capacity of shapeshifting is to be taken seriously. The tricksters' souls might also cross your body. So seize that moment, which is an essential gift to all of us who have been given possibility of agency. Do not expect a person to be the trickster with a lifelong task, but rather allow the trickster's essence to roam and perform through your body, or become an avid reader and interpreter, rallying and co-creator, and be co-creating the echo spaces for a possible impact of the trickster's acts. And now to Melissa's lifelong work on critical diversity literacy. What are these connectivities, you might ask, although I'm sure you already found that. The trickster figure and their acts are catalyzers. Through their acts of transgressions, we can engage in a collective and performative reading of what is being pointed to, what is being disturbed, and how this disturbance can encourage us, as Yohann and Thandile stated, to allow ourselves to become a community who is vibrating together, and in this way, sending tremors to systems which merit to be laughed at and laughed away. And directing a thought towards the art scene, maybe the trickster figures might be artists in places we have not seen, or they might sit in any of our institutions and wear the hats of everyday functions whilst studying, inspired by the ways of artist tricksters.
So for me, the idea of trickster is also one of a mediator, of an agent, of a translator, a medium, a messenger, a thief, an instigator, an unsettler, a troublemaker, a mythical figure, a joker, a liberator, something elusive and something also graspable. So in a sense, the trickster is not to mislead with all of that's been said, but it's a way of telling the truth. Becomes which is then transformed into, and this is an interpretation of
George, that was a magnificent introduction for our conference. What a wonderful way to start us off and to start our deliberations for the next 3 days. So thank you very, very much. But I first want to suggest to the audience that you might want to check whether George actually is a trickster and whether you can pin him down in your questions or if he's going to be elusive.
As you know me.
So please feel free. We've got a few minutes to ask him some questions or comments. Or just oohs and ahs. Nikki.
Could you put up the lights again?
Oh yeah, can we put the lights up? Thank you. Also, thank you for bringing Donna Kukama back to Joburg. It's good. It's a less interesting place without her here. Okay, so I think all of the artists that you cite and you yourself, particularly Yohann, are all talking about the trickster as quite a positive archetype, right? And Yohann is speaking about the type of humor that the trickster embodies as a very particular type of humor that's not mean, that's not divisive, that doesn't punch down. You know, he does make these points. But I just wanted to ask you whether we need to be very careful with how utopian we get about the archetype of the trickster, because historically and mythologically, a lot of the representation of the trickster has also been really flippin' nasty, right? There is a core of violent misogyny in a lot of trickster myths. There is a lot of stuff that is very, very, very unpleasant. And it's literally about this one very, very clever man or male figure with an enormous penis getting one over all sorts of other people. So while we can look at these kind of mythological notions of the trickster and go, oh, how gorgeous and wonderful, we also need to go, there's something in here, there's something in this particular type of joking that can be very, very dangerous. So what do we do with that, is my question.
Absolutely, absolutely. It seems to be like a cleaned version of the trickster, which I presented. And in fact, I thought also starting a conversation into a conference, we might anyway detect all those pitfalls, all those rather ugly things. Although I would claim that exactly that which we consider ugly might at the end also reveal something. So the trickster in herself, in themselves, is also a figure which reveals something which we might have to react against. And in that way, again, opening up possibilities. So the possibilities are not just offered through a positive, hey, let's meet all together, but also as a catalyzer for maybe things we need to consider.
Thank you. Karen?
Speak about boundary crossing, but could you comment, please, on the specific movement of the trickster during the Middle Passage of slavery? How a trickster from Ghana popped up in the American South, and some of us knew this trickster as Brer Rabbit. In fact, Brer Rabbit started out as an African rabbit, not an American one. So I'm cautious to use the word import, but it's almost as if slavery and colonialism imported tricksters from elsewhere.
I would totally contest that. I think the trickster is a figure of nomadic capacities, and in that way also crossing borders, even those which we do not want. It is an archetypal figure, however, which is as much in Chinese context as the monkey, for example, in Japanese context, in old European context before colonialism. So it has been something which time and again is in its own time revealing its own sense. And through that, the colonial actually has an own narrative. And that kind of, let's say, subversion is one of great interest. And meeting up other myths, for example, then in the US, which again also become contaminated, changed, and further developed.
Thank you. Do we have, yes? Sure. Yes.
I was just wondering about the trickster's place in the internet and how the internet allows for an exponential kind of growth of the trickster in terms of misinformation, disinformation. What is it about the internet that allows the trickster to become such a foregrounded figure in our contemporary age, especially in terms of the internet and virtuality and things like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another topic for a whole conference. And again, like maybe just taking up the question around the positive and the negative, obviously, you know, like when we are tricked out of our own money and when we find ourselves devoid of our, what we thought, personal data, and suddenly this brought into another context, I think in there lies a huge new space of, for example, the question, what means to be still in a protected space? What means to be a person believing to be an integral kind of self or a community? and in what way this tricksting puts us also in a very, let's say, also aggressive way aware of how much we have lost of ourselves in ways of believing that we are still protected entities.
At the back.
Thank you very much for the enlightening and provocative presentation. What was going through my humble mind throughout was the actuality of empire itself as an enormous trickster that will take the world to war for purposes of peace, and that will circulate tyranny, claiming to be cultivating democracy, and put all of us in trouble, pretending to be the good one amongst the West. So thank you for allowing our minds to expand and look at things that way. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Perhaps one more, if there's one more question. All right. Well, then I think.
Hello, can we ask from online?
Sorry?
Online view. I want to ask a question online. I'm an
Okay.
online viewer.
Okay. Last question.
My name is James from Nigeria. Thank you for your presentation. I don't know, can you hear me over there? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, this is James from Nigeria.
Hello, hello, welcome.
Yeah, this is James from Nigeria. Thank you for your presentation. And it has opened my understanding to another point of Trickster. So my question is, how does the idea of Trickster humorously promote social justice? I don't know if I'm audible enough. How does the idea of Trickster promote social justice? Thank you.
Well, I think we are, in fact, unluckily not with Thandile right now, whose main concern and work is about question of social justice, and their approaches to using Trickster's strategies, which means also to embody those spaces which we are uncomfortable with or which have not been yet properly negotiated, are also about inviting possibilities to enter into conversations. The Trickster is never one to drive for the social justice. It can only be a catalyzer, and the task is ours. That means in the way we interpret, maybe even the failing, the wrong things, you know, like which, for example, if I'm coming with gray hair and with my white guilt, I am not being anything other than just an image. Yet it can be crossed and something can be challenged through this very appearance. So social justice is our work, but the Trickster can, let's say, can trick us into starting to think.